All right, welcome back, everyone, back to our podcast show here with myself and Stefania. And today we are excited to bring this topic to you because it's been one that is circulating right now on the internet. And it seems like nobody's really getting it right, at least to what we understand, right? Of course, we're talking about the movie Disclosure Day, and we'll be doing a review today on it. So, without saying too much, do want to get into it and kind of I mean there's some things that we found alarming in this movie, and we'll make sure that we bring it up to your attention and as well, and hopefully you can see the same things that we're seeing because it's pretty blatant what's happening. So yeah, so with that said, um Stefania, so what let's start in the beginning on the movie. Actually, what's one scene that caught your attention um when you were watching it?
Well, there was many of them actually. I also want to say another thing as well. Is interesting because there's so many people that have obviously watched this movie now, and I watched it as soon as it came out, like the second day that it came out in Australia, and it actually came out
Mhm.
earlier than that it was actually advertised, which was interesting. So I remember it was advertised for September, and then they must have pushed it forward, which I thought was actually quite interesting as well. Like the reason why they pushed it forward or why they pushed the release date forward,
Mhm.
at least in Australia anyway. But yeah, there was a few things that were
Interesting.
quite alarming to me, and I've actually watched a lot of reviews being done by people already, a few different people on social media. I'm not going to name any names, and just some normal people out there like us that are talking about it and bringing forth this information. And I actually haven't really come across many people that are actually properly discerning the movie and I guess seeing it from that perspective. And once again, there's no right or wrong or good or bad. It's mainly just the fact that, we have a completely different opinion to the majority of the public and people talking about this.
Right.
A lot of people see this as a very positive thing, which once again, I'm not saying it's bad, but a lot of people seem to be taking this movie as an actual disclosure, right? You know what I mean? So a lot of people are actually believing that this movie was created, with the truth, portraying like the real disclosure, enabling the true information and putting out the information about the aliens. I did hear a lot of people were actually expecting, real alien files, footage and content to be released as well, which obviously we know that didn't happen. Whether or not maybe some of those videos in the movie or when some of those files that were
Mhm.
released were maybe some real footage, or maybe there was some remnants of what really happened. I personally don't think that any of it was real. I don't think that we actually really saw any real footage or much about the actual aliens. I mean, by now, a lot of
Yes.
people know in these circles and the people that we speak to, and, people on TikTok and social media, obviously, there's a huge alien movement, extraterrestrial movement. I mean, we've been speaking about it previously as well with like even Tony Sayers and in between us as well in our own groups. We've been talking about how much of this is now being pushed by not just people and not just influencers, not even spiritual influencers, but now by the government, right? By people like Donald Trump. So it's almost like there's a big push to actually, um, you know, not program, but I guess put this out into society, right? So obviously they want us to
Yeah.
believe in aliens. They want us to know about the extraterrestrials. And you and I know that there's more to it than that, right? I mean, there's different types of beings that we call extraterrestrials, but there's ultra terrestrials, there's metaterrestrials, there's, all these different
There's
types of entities.
intraterrestrials, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's all like interdimensional, right?
Yeah.
And that there are beings that don't necessarily come here from spaceships, right? And even the term, even when we talk about spaceships and UFOs and things like that, obviously we have a very different perspective on what we believe that is. We've, according to our research and things that we've discovered, we have kind of felt like the UFO movement is very government agenda based. Like this
Yes.
technology has been around since like the 1930s.
Yeah.
Another thing in the movie Disclosure as well that happened was they actually said that these aliens made contact in the 1970s, which is actually not necessarily true because there's lots of information out there, by, people involved in the extraterrestrial agenda and the military, the US military and everything, where it goes all the way back to the 1930s, right? And all of this. So I don't know. There was a lot in there, and I guess we can start
Yeah.
from the beginning. Um,
Which I'm glad
well,
I'm glad
firstly,
I'm glad you said all that part because I think that's important to keep in mind, that, like you said, from the 1930s, from, like, the incident of, like, back in Roswell, they've made this narrative and conditioned people to believe in these grays, and these aliens with the big eyes and, big heads and small bodies and coming from these saucers and crashing down, right? And that narrative has kind of spanned, I mean, throughout many generations now, maybe like 4 or 5 generations now. So,
uh-huh,
to this moment now where people are more accepting of that image and that and knowing of what an alien is, right? Whenever you say alien or you
mhm,
speak about these kind of things, people already picture that. So, of course, they're using that as like the main foundation to essentially pump out their agenda because
mhm,
they can't use a Nordic white, they can't use a reptilian because I mean reptilians have a bad rep anyway. So like they have to use
mm,
something that people are familiar to, and a lot of people actually even like the Greys, right?
mm,
And actually, with that said, I feel like we both agree. And here's the thing: both you and I watched the movie, separately, and it's funny
mm,
because when we spoke about it, it's like we saw the same things, in the movie, and the
mhm,
main like one of the main themes is that these Greys and Zetas have been here, in in the front view of people. They're the ones who I feel
mhm.
wrote that script, right? And you agreed as well because it was
Yeah,
very obvious. It was very
absolutely.
obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's been a lot of look, this can be this might be a conspiracy theory. So it may be true, it might not be true, but it checks out because there's multiple people that speak about the history of the Greys' involvement with our planet, and about how there's allegations that they actually sold us this futuristic nuclear technology and military tech to the U.S. government, and then the U.S. government made agreements with them to allow them to abduct human beings, right? To allow them to abduct the people and whatever. And this was the agreement that was made. So
Yeah.
they basically sold us out, in exchange for technology, in exchange for this nuclear technology, these weapons. So I guess for me, that's the beginning of this of all this whole agenda, right? Where from the beginning, it doesn't really sound like these extraterrestrials really had any positive agenda or benevolent agenda with the human race. But I guess going back to the movie, there's a couple of things where there's two protagonists, right? Emily Blunt and the main guy that actually had the files or the UFO info to begin with, and he was running away from
Yeah.
the Men in Black or whoever these other people were portrayed to be. And I mean, what were they? Were they like part of like the secret government? How would you explain these groups of, I guess, officials that were essentially trying to stop the disclosure from happening in the movie?
Yeah, that was quite interesting because they present themselves as FBI, but even in the movie, in the scene where Emily Blunt's in the hospital and she's being checked out, and she notices them, outside, the window, waiting for her. She, like her inner voice tells her like, "Oh, they're not FBI, right?" So they
Mhm,
immediately like just cut that, say, "Oh, they're not FBI." They don't really say
mhm,
if they're CIA or anything. Honestly, I mean, if you
mhm.
ask me, beyond what we know, there are other government programs that are even more secretive than the CIA, that work
Yeah.
under the military complex, and
There's
they're
like the
super secretive
Majestic
that you don't even
12,
know at all.
M12, and all
Mhm.
these other
Yeah,
different groups that, even the Wingmakers, all these different secret government groups that obviously had involvement in
exactly.
over time in the extraterrestrial agendas and these out of world or inner
Yes.
world, underworld, who knows what, like, with all these different entities, all these different beings. Obviously, once again, these are
Mhm.
conspiracies. And, this is just what's out there now, the information that is sort of coming to the surface. But, this was the beginning of it all where yeah, there was obviously like two different groups, one vying for the disclosure, another one that wanted, to keep these hidden, whatever these can be
Mm,
related to real government operatives or real secret government programs, or even just no government, secret groups that work with who knows what out there. It was interesting how there was a good and a bad, but once again, they were just all coming at it from different perspectives because I thought it was interesting as well psychologically in the movie. I kind of was empathetic for both sides, where one of them viewed the disclosure happening as in like affecting the human race, and they didn't believe that the human race were ready to have this information, and that this would debunk
mhm.
religions, and this would make create wars and division, and it would just be too much for people to handle. And then the other groups were essentially
Yes.
portraying it as, well, no, they believed that the human race was ready, and that we must not underestimate the human race, that we are much more intelligent and open-minded than we are led to, but that we even lead ourselves to believe, right? I think that was the one part of the movie, probably like one or
Wow.
two parts of the movie where I actually agreed with, because I was like, I loved that psychological dance where it's like there are groups of people in the world, just like us, that do have those opinions. I'm sure there's people out there that believe the same thing, like this would absolutely create war and chaos if we were to find out the true nature of reality. Absolutely, but then on the
Oh,
other side
yeah.
of things, it's like, well,
Yeah.
humans are such an adaptable species. I mean, look at everything we've been through, look at everything that we've survived, look at everything that we've created. We must have faith in ourselves to be able to withstand this information, right, and this knowledge. I mean, even
Yeah.
speaking about my awakening and your awakening, and talking to all these different people and watching people's awakenings now in real time, it's like, well, we're already coming into like this whole new realm and reality of all this knowledge and wisdom. And yeah, let's be real, some people aren't really dealing with it very well. Some are not using it for benevolent purposes, but at the end of the day, it's almost kind of like this has to happen, right? Um,
Yeah.
and the other side of it that I also
Which
thought was
is
interesting and I actually liked, I'm not gonna lie, I did like this about the movie as well, how they incorporated
mhm.
religion and they showed like the nuns. I don't know if they were Catholic or Christian nuns, I don't really know. I didn't really pay much attention, but I really liked how they yeah, involved religion, and they portrayed this nun as being like an open-minded Christian or whatever, or an open-minded Catholic, and basically talking about the universe and the cosmic view of things and the universal view of things, and how she said that we are not alone, and that God must have created other things. Obviously, they were portraying God as a he and personifying it, whatever, that's standard. But I really liked that they included that in the movie as well, because I was actually thinking it was going to be the complete opposite. Because I mean, most religious people that you talk to in person, they're very much just like, no, that's demonic, that's evil, blah, 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 and they kind of, they get really very defensive about it, and they don't necessarily think that aliens are real, and they see aliens as demons. I mean, that's just the standard like Christian or Catholic out there, right? But I really liked that they incorporated that into the movie as well, because
Yeah.
yeah, we can't obviously
Well,
judge
and
all
and
religions.
I'm glad you mentioned religion because yeah, I was I think it was almost predictable in a way, but I think what in my opinion, in my eyes, I feel like at the end it almost even like dissolved religion a little bit. And because
Mm,
religion is really rooted in the creator aspect, right? So they believe in a creator. That's why they're very opposed to like the sciences. They're very opposed to, like the whole alien thing because they don't believe that nothing outside of this, outside of their Bible, their belief, and this God figure is real, right? But at the end of the movie, they kind of bridge that gap and almost insinuate that like these aliens, had a part in the human creation, right? And that's
mm.
why they view these aliens. They view these aliens as like part of that kind of creator God. So and
Mm,
so now this is going really far into it. Now I think we should kind of really back a little bit, but um, I think that ultimately, um, it's something that we're already kind of going into right now, even in our current times.
Uh,
And it's really interesting to see as well because a lot of people are entering again or re-entering the religious space. You know, they're becoming very
mm,
Christian now. It's like very like it's a very
mhm,
like almost like contrast and divisive time where people are choosing their beliefs and like locking in right now because for some
uh,
reason, you know, everything's hectic and people think it's the end of times or whatever. But yeah, so without going too far into it, going back a little bit now, let's get into the movie. So we kind
uh,
of because I think it's time now. So when, in the beginning of the movie, kind of well, beginning, but in the first half of the movie, what's one thing, and I'll ask you again, what's one thing that caught your attention during like the first quarter of the movie, right? I think we kind of
uh,
spoke about this too.
yeah, so it's essentially, the one thing that caught my attention, I was actually absolutely shocked, but it didn't surprise me at the same time. I was actually just very, concerned about how they portrayed Emily Blunt's activation, right? Which obviously, to the normal person or to the normal NPC, I guess, that watching that, they wouldn't really lock in. Or, you know what I mean? I feel like there's obviously deeper meanings to how this was portrayed as well. But when they were portraying Emily Blunt's, activation or whatever, and how she started to develop psychic abilities, how she started to, just talk different languages, and there's that scene where she's basically she's like a weather reporter or something like that, and she starts like almost speaking like an alien language and starts making like those clicking noises, and she's sort of like losing control of her body, right? She's losing control of herself. And there's many scenes where they actually show that happening, where she's talking in different language, or she's having like some type of psychic phenomenon happen to her, but she herself isn't aware of it. So she herself isn't actually in control of her body. And to me, that instantly signified, some type of possession. This to me felt like possession.
Yeah.
This to me felt like there was something else that was um either communicating through her or using her. And that was the first thing where I just saw some red flags, because I was like, well, okay, this is interesting. Like, what is this getting to? Like, what is this about? Because I instantly thought to myself, possession, right? And then obviously towards the middle and then towards the end of the movie, there is that scene where they actually show both the protagonists, where they take them back into that memory of their childhood, and they both experience the abduction experience by these entities that were actually camouflaging or shapeshifting themselves into animals so the children would feel safe with them, and how they physically lured the children out of their bedrooms at night, and they took them to a ship, but the ship was actually camouflaging as a home,
Hmm.
like as this beautiful,
Yeah.
safe, homely looking home. And then the children went in, but then it like turned into a spaceship, right? And obviously, this is where it gets really
Hmm.
concerning, because, I mean, I feel like an abduction experience is a direct spiritual violation. I feel like an abduction experience
Yeah.
is not natural. I don't believe that there's anything benevolent about this. But in the movie, they were portraying this experience as like this spiritual, like holy, almost like fantastical experience that they had. And this is how they got their powers, and this is how they were activated, and this is how Emily Blunt got her abilities in the movie and everything like that. And this abduction experience, that was probably the most fucked up, like, scene that I watched.
Yeah.
And obviously we noticed a few
Yeah.
things in there, and we noticed the MK Ultra, the monarch butterfly in her eyes, and then you
Yeah.
also noticed how there was a bit of hesitation. The boy actually looked scared, and how they were like beaming
Yeah.
lights into them. Okay, well, let's just talk about this, because I know that you have a lot to say about this scene as well. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I think yeah, from the beginning when I noticed the whole possession aspect of the movie and where in the beginnings, right, where she's at home and then that red cardinal bird comes in and then out of nowhere like
Mhm,
it triggers something in her and like something really powerful that she can't explain and it overtakes her and she even starts speaking different languages, right? And then she
uh,
goes, into work and then she does her little presentation and she starts like spazzing out and speaking a different language and doing clicks and sounds, and then she passes out, right? So like that to me, it was like I was like, like what is this? Like what's going on? You know, this is clearly like something is out of her control. She's being like remotely like controlled from somewhere else, right? So I think yeah, that was
Mhm.
the first part, and I think as I was watching it, it became really that same aspect of possession became again just prevalent, right? With that one guy and his girlfriend, right, who the ex nun girlfriend, who also
Mhm.
became possessed, right? Because in the movie you have
Mhm.
like this like crystal, this black crystal thing that they use, this technology they use to remotely control people just by seeing their
Mhm.
images or their photos, right? Like in the movie where that government agent was doing, and
Yeah.
so this possession almost becomes normalized because nobody asks any questions. Like even the
Mhm.
like the guy like the guy's girlfriend, like I mean like the girlfriend's the main guy, he doesn't even question anything, and still takes her along the whole journey. I think there's even a
Yeah.
scene where she likes like, "Oh, tie me up," like, and and he ties her up, and I'm like, "Okay," like, expecting another possession, right? So, like, it's like telling the audience, like, "Hey, this
Yeah.
is happening. It's okay. Don't ask questions. We don't know how the technology
Yeah.
works or what's going on, what's behind it, who's behind it, who left it behind, right?" So that was like a big red flag to me. And then going to the abduction part, which was pretty much like the height of the movie. Um, I think one scene that stuck out to me the most was when she was in this house that they had rebuilt for her, and where she was, because I guess that memory was like very distant, and she forgot about it, right? Because it was a traumatic experience, and as you know, with traumas, people forget
Mhm.
like their memory sometimes, right? So they had to kind
Yeah.
of bring it in and then play it back to her, and using another little crystal thing that she was holding. And so and then in that scene, like the other guy, her twin, right? He sees these aliens, like these grays come in, and but he sees them as they are. Like he doesn't see them as animals, right? And
Mm.
he's like terrified,
Yeah.
right? He's terrified. And then in the movie, like Emily Blunt, like she sees them as animals, but she's like, "Hey, like don't worry, like don't freak out. Like they show
Mhm.
themselves as animals, so that way you don't get scared, right?" And I was like,
Yeah,
"Wow,
and
okay,
that
like
they even say that in the
they're
movie
super
too,
blunt."
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because that
Yeah,
the
yeah,
black
she
guy in the
says it.
movie.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. When he's explaining it to them, he's saying, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry. This is how they sometimes show themselves so we don't get scared." And that in itself is like a whole other
Yes.
rabbit hole, right? And that's also very alarming because it's like, well, something that was benevolent, something that had good intentions wouldn't feel the need to hide and shapeshift itself to make you feel comfortable, you know what I mean? And then also this goes into, and just in my opinion, but this also goes into like another theory that I have that saying something that I truly believe is that I don't really trust anything that doesn't necessarily look human or really closely resembles what a human looks like. You know what I mean? Because even like how people are going about like these Zeta aliens, the Greys, the mantis beings, the reptilians, all these other beings that, come from all these other star systems, wherever they're from,
Yeah.
well, at the end of the day, they're not like us, they're not human. They don't feel it doesn't really feel like they belong on this planet. It doesn't really feel like they're from here. You know what I mean? Because a human that's a human that was born on Earth or that actually, came to Earth and evolved as a human, means that it actually is more resonant to the planet, right? And the planet is more resonant to it. So I really truly feel like anything that looks like these other creatures or whatever you want to call them, even like a Zeta gray alien or a
Right.
gray alien, for example, like, those series that they were digressed beings from a human timeline at one point, but then they merged with AI, and
Yes.
they digressed so far, into like these forms that we now see as like grays, or zetas, right, where they have like the big gray
Yes.
eyes and the bubble heads, and like the slimy,
Oh, no
like gray skin.
emotions.
Yeah, like no emotions. I truly do believe that these beings are AI. I believe that these are like android beings, and they feel cold.
Mhm.
They actually don't feel like they have a soul. They don't feel like they have a heart. And they're honestly just really fucking ugly. And I don't know about
Yeah.
you, but I don't feel like an angelic being, a heart-based being, a being of light is actually
No.
ugly in form ever, you know what I mean? And I know that sounds superficial and whatever, I said what I said, but at the end of the day, I've had my own experiences with both, and it just feels different, it looks different, and I feel like things that are more benevolent of nature and that actually have
Yes.
a good intention for humanity are much more human-like. I don't trust these insectoid
Yes.
beings, I don't trust these gray beings, I don't trust these Zeta beings, and I know that people have different experiences and people believe that, some of them may have good intentions, but at the end of the day, like, well, why are we being programmed to believe that these gray beings in this movie, for example, like, it's almost like they're programming us to
Right.
believe that these were our creators and that these are like the only life out in the universe and that these are like these highly
Mhm.
advanced, intelligent beings that are here to
Yeah.
help us. Why are we being programmed to believe that? And why is this movie kind of pushing that idea that it is okay for them to abduct us and that, they are able to give us abilities and they're able to and that they have like these good intentions for us. I mean, there's so much there, obviously. Like we could talk about this for hours, but there's
Yeah.
just it's concerning, and like you said at the beginning of the podcast, like, yeah, this definitely feels like this script was written by these entities. Like it serves
Yeah.
it really only serves their agenda, right? And then even just, yeah, like you said, in the movie,
Mhm.
they they portray themselves as victims as well, because when they release the files and the content on the aliens in the
Yes.
movie, the military men are seen like subjugating them and almost like torturing them. And in the movie,
Yeah.
the
I
audience
noticed
actually
that too. Mhm.
yeah, so it's almost like energy harvesting our empathy, right? And also like
Mhm.
this victimizing of the greys, and they're victimizing themselves, and it's almost like, hold on, it's actually the complete opposite because actually they have
Which is
victimized
it's funny.
us.
It's
Oh my
funny because,
gosh.
yeah, I actually, like, I kinda, kinda laughed a little bit because in one of the scenes at the end where they were doing the disclosure to everybody, right? And they were, like, playing these scenes, on the news, and, the first thing they play, is, like, one of the Greys being picked up from, like, the wreckage of, like, the the spaceship, and they're, like, like, dead and, like, injured, and I'm like, "What's going on?" Like, that made me laugh. I was like, "This is, like, so corny." Like, you can't, like, you really can't see that and feel like that's I can't. And like you said, empathy.
Uh,
And that's the biggest thing because even in the movie, I mean, they say it to you, like, if there's anything that Spielberg did, for a favor to everybody was to put certain things literally in on the script, right? And
uh,
one thing that was said, in the movie was that, empathy is an evolutionary advantage, and that's one of the things that caught my attention right away because I was like, "Ah, I knew it. I knew that they were trying to make us feel bad about something." And
uh,
they're weaponizing empathy, essentially. They're weaponizing empathy because that's how you get to a human, right? Is by
yeah,
making them feel bad about something. It's like when you see like a dead animal on the road, right? You feel bad for it.
mm,
So like they're weaponizing this because that's the secret behind them to be able to present themselves and to be able to do whatever they want with you, right? Because you think that they're
yeah,
good, you feel bad for them, we abuse them, blah 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 blah. And I was like, wow, that was the main takeaway of the movie. So yeah, I feel like that in itself is disgusting, obviously, because they
mm,
are manipulating people and they're trying to. I mean, it's like a narcissistic trait. I mean, if you think about a narcissist, they weaponize empathy against you.
yeah,
They gaslight you,
yeah,
and to
literally.
get what they want from you. Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
the
I
the
was
whole
like,
movie,
wow,
like,
like
I I literally felt like that was, like, how I felt throughout the whole movie. I felt like I was being manipulated, I felt like I was being gaslit, I felt like it was so It was actually funny, to be honest with you. Like, at the end of the day, I still enjoyed watching it because I was entertained, decoding, like, all of it and just
Yeah.
sitting there going, "Wow, this is actually hilarious." But, there's a lot of dark concepts that are very normalized in the movie, like you said, like this weaponizing empathy and, the Greys, essentially trying to, yeah, like, harvest our empathy and our sympathy for them, even though we are the victims of what they've done to us and the choices that they've made for
Yes.
themselves. So it's almost like, well, who's the real victim here? And then, yeah, different things like MK Ultra. That was also like a pretty crazy concept that they just put in there. Like they put like the monarch butterfly in her eyes when she was being abducted. And for those that have gone down
Yeah.
the MK Ultra rabbit hole, it's actually a disgusting, like, it's really, really bad what they've actually done to
Yeah.
children, because through MK Ultra,
Yeah.
they're subjected to drug abuse, torture, that actually fragments different parts of the brain and it splits the brain. That's why it's like the butterfly, right? It's split into like
Correct.
four. It's
Yeah.
compartmentalized torture, and then
Yes.
and then they also portray this in the trauma aspect that Emily Blunt has, how she's has this trauma and, she's blocked from the memory and she doesn't remember it because of the trauma that happened to her. And even then, that is just so normalized, when she actually
Yeah.
when they actually take her back and they actually make her relive the trauma as this like beautiful abduction experience, when really, once again, abduction is a spiritual violation. You know what I mean? They literally experiment on human beings, they implant human beings. We don't actually know what has happened, to people when they've been abducted, but a lot of people say that they do not come back the same. So what does this tell you? And yeah, it is pretty dark because at the end of the day, yeah, we can sit here and just say it's just a movie and it's all for entertainment and la di da. Disclosure is disclosure. And I've heard people say this as well online that has spoken about this movie, saying,
Mm.
any disclosure is good disclosure, which I actually think is disgusting as well because, well, it's not. It's literally it's manipulation through programming, right? It's literally MK Ultra through MK Ultra through MK Ultra that is basically
Hmm.
programming people and
Yeah.
brainwashing people into seeing things a certain way and believing things a certain way and just really having absolutely no real knowledge or wisdom about what has actually happened, and using concepts that we are familiar with and basically using them against us. So yeah, I,
Yeah.
I, I think I think the whole thing was yeah, was pretty fucked up, really.
Yeah, and that's the part that gets me because yeah, it's to us we can see it, for what it is, and some parts are even entertaining. They're funny because they're stupid and wow, like you see the bullshit. But, when it comes down to people who don't know any better, are not all the way, tapped in, they they will see this and think it's like the greatest thing ever, And like you said, like, oh,
Mhm.
any disclosure is good disclosure. I mean, to a person who is maybe at this level who still doesn't think that there's more to life, maybe, but I think even then, because of what this movie, like what it portrays in the movie, and it's just not, it doesn't guide you to a way of truth or I mean,
No.
even let alone sovereignty, right? It's very
Mhm.
deceiving, and it has a really dark agenda behind it. And I think this is why we were doing a review because just seeing left and right, and look, everyone is entitled to their perspective, whatever. But honestly, right is right, wrong is wrong, and there's a lot of wrong things in this movie that came up to me and you, and people need to know. People, have to open their eyes and their minds up to what we're telling them
Mhm.
because it is very real, and it's not only just to this movie, right? I mean, this is something that is also being seen in the new age communities, in the spiritual scene of things, where it's been
Mhm.
very active lately with all these contacts with Pleiadians, reptilians, and Nordics, and this and that, and all these teachings and whatever, where you see like this very like the same. tone almost, right? Of like this like love and light, of this like empathy, and they're trying to get to people, through this empathy, like we're good, we're here for you, like, and
Mhm.
but really there's like something darker behind that, and I mean,
Yeah.
I can see it, I can feel it, you can see it, you know it as well. And this is why we're bringing this up, because it's not just
Mm.
about the movie, it's about that message and what's going on in that is also being portrayed everywhere else. And people are being tricked,
Mhm.
people are being deceived, and they're feeding into systems. They're essentially giving their soul away. They're believing in things that come to them because it tells them, oh, we're your gods, we're your creators, follow us, whatever this
Mhm.
and that, and that's what I'm trying to really hone down and say, hey, like, open your eyes and really see, and this is why we're doing this. So, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I mean,
what are
at the
your
end of the
final
day, I feel
thoughts
like all
on the
in
movie?
all. Sorry?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I think I just interrupted you, like, your last sentence, sorry. No, I
No,
was
you're
just
fine. You're
saying
fine. Yeah,
that
go ahead.
no, I was just saying that, yeah, at the end of the day, basically, like, overall, what I got from it is that obviously this is, serving the AI timeline. This is obviously serving the alien, the gray alien agenda, and this is obviously normalizing abduction. It's normalizing spaceships. It's normalizing these beings coming in as our creator gods, and yeah, it's almost kind of connected to this whole timeline that's happening now, right? Where people are like wanting to get beamed off, and people are waiting for the aliens to come and show themselves, and the Project Blue Beam and everything like that. But most of all, it is normalizing abductions because at the end of the day, yeah, they basically promote these abduction experiences in the movie like a positive thing, right? Where instead of us finding our own power, instead of us learning how to activate ourselves through, ascension, which is what I talk about on my channel a lot, it's almost like, oh, don't worry about it, like these aliens can just come and beam you up and, do all these experimentations on you and implant you with things, and then you'll be activated and you'll have all these psychic abilities and all these powers as is portrayed in the movie through Emily Blunt. So, yeah, it's interesting that it's actually that this movie has come out now, especially when there's this whole alien disclosure happening, right? Like in real life, and people talk about extraterrestrials and things like that. So, yeah, it was definitely an interesting watch. But I was going to ask you as well towards the
Yes.
end of the movie, the last scene where obviously Emily Blunt comes onto her show and everything like that, and then they actually bring out the gray alien. What was your depiction of that? Like, what do you think that was about? Like, what was the last message that you think they wanted to leave you with?
Yeah, that scene, which was a bit funny seeing that, it was like this like the disabled old alien coming out and on a wheelchair. I'm like, okay, it's funny because like, like these grays, they're supposed to be advanced and super intelligent, but yet they're weak and they can't fight back and they age apparently. So, um, but
That tells you
anyway,
everything
so
that you need
besides
to know.
that point, yeah, pretty much. I was like, wow, okay. But so in that scene, which was like the cliffhanger of the movie at the end, obviously,
Mhm.
um, the alien he talks to the guy because it could only talk to him, through clicks and stuff because it's like some mathematical language, right? Again, I'm gonna highlight mathematical language.
Yes. Oh my god,
And
that reminds me. Sorry, just before you continue, sorry, that one last thing as well. That reminded me, earlier during the movie, I'm sorry for calling him a black guy, but the black guy that was like the head agent of the positive force that wanted disclosure.
Hugo, yeah,
Hugo, yeah, he
yeah.
actually he explains that somewhere in the movie where he says that these aliens communicate to us through maths and
Mm-hmm.
geometry and everything, and I was like, interesting. What does that remind you of,
Sounds a
right?
bit
It's like,
sounds a bit
yeah.
like Metatron, I don't know. Wait, wait, cough, cough. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It's AI. It's AI, right? It's Metatronic. I mean, like, Anyway, let's not get into that. Let's not get into fucking Metatron, but sorry, continue.
Yeah, that's another topic, I'm sure, but, it's just to highlight that a little bit, but, so yeah, besides that, he tells him something and those clicks and sounds or whatever, and then he tells Emily Blunt the message, right? Because they can understand each other, and then she goes on, and then she starts to speak or whatever, and it cuts off, right? Now, one of the biggest things, based on my discernment and intuition and what I'm seeing, what I know and about everything, is that what was probably said, which, by the way, they won't make any other movies besides this. I feel like this is the last one for this one. But anyway, what was said was that either we are your creators, or something like with that creation part, because that is the ultimate goal at the end, to mesh both uh, Christians, Catholics, and to bridge the gap of people who believe in aliens, because once they know or think that these grays or whoever are their creators, the second
Mm,
that happens, you will immediately like choose to assimilate to them, because you'll see them
mm,
as an external like superior being, right? And that's what they
mm,
want you to think, that they created you, that they are their god, the god, your god, right?
mm,
Something that has been also prevalent in all of the New Age stuff. I mean, the Anunnaki talk about the same thing. They tell people that they are the gods, and
mm.
they created people. Is that same pattern again that showed up in the movie that I saw? I was like, that is most likely what was said at the end. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting. Like so many people are hung up right now on like what created them and who created the human race. And at the end of the day, it's like, well, everybody, in my opinion, every human, anything and everything that's on Earth right now is literally a mix of, all these different star
mhm,
systems, all these different, um, you know, basically prisoners of war that have been stuck here, right? That essentially are trying now to ascend. And I mean, and that's not just the Anunnaki or the Greys or the Palladians or the reptilians, you know what I mean? Everybody is here right now, like,
yeah.
yeah, everybody is here. So at
And
the
they're
end
looking
of the
for two
day,
things, right?
mm, yeah,
Yeah, they're looking for two things. One, the exit out of here, and two,
mm,
their savior,
mm,
right? And
yeah,
that's the hook. That's the hook for everybody, even in the new age space that people think they're more advanced and more spiritual. Even them still get hooked by
mm,
those two things. So, but
yeah,
again, that's a whole another topic of things. And again, this is like really opening a big rabbit hole on that, which I'm sure we'll follow up on the
mm,
next pod. But for this one, I think, yeah, that's the main takeaway. I mean, I'm really glad that, we both saw this with the same eye of discernment. I mean, no surprise, we do
mm.
have a good intuition, and I appreciate, that from you as well, because, yeah, it's kind of lonely out there right now. Nobody's really seeing it. No one's really speaking about it. And I hope that whoever watches this, and you if you
Mm.
get it, you show other people, you share this as well, because it's a message that needs to be heard. And again, it's not the most popular opinion. I think it's a really unpopular opinion, and we're
Mm.
almost maybe seen as haters, or pessimists. But really, we're just realists, and we can see it for what it is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like, yeah, this whole it's almost like it's just being pushed in our faces now, you know what I mean, about the aliens and extraterrestrials, and
Yeah.
it's like they really, really want us to pay attention to what's happening in the sky right now. You know what I mean? And I don't believe anything that's happening in the sky. I don't really believe anything that's, up there, because I know what up there is, and it's
No.
nothing good. It's a fucking simulation. So I don't if I see any
Right.
spaceships coming down, if I see UFOs, whatever in the sky and big mass landings happening. All I know is I ain't going. Like, I am not going with anything that is coming from the sky, calling themselves my creator God and all of this. Like, no, thank you. I
Good.
feel like I'm going to run the other way. And it's almost like that's the reason
Yep.
as to why this is all being normalized now, because people are obviously just really sick and tired of the way that the world is. And I get it from an empathetic point of view. I understand that things are hard right now. And, a lot of people, are just wanting to ascend and wanting to get out of here, wanting to escape the earth. But that's exactly what they want us to feel. You know what I mean? They want us to be so desperate to get out of this suffering. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, that we create
Yeah.
ourselves. So that's the thing. If you realize that you're creating your own suffering, you will stop suffering, which is actually ironic, but that's actually how it works. And it's almost like they're feeding on this
Mhm.
um, evacuation experience, like, getting out of Earth, leaving Earth. And, once again, I talk about this on my TikTok channel, but that's actually funny because that's exactly what they're trying to brainwash us with. It's like, hey guys, there's saviors
Yeah.
up there in the universe, in the sky, you know what I mean? That are going to come down from
Come with
spaceships
us.
and give you powers and save you and get you out of this Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, no, really good podcast. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, obviously,
Yes.
likewise, we
Yeah,
have
me
very
too.
similar views. So yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So with that said, I just leave you guys with those final thoughts. And again, it's instead of looking up, I think we should just look, inside, right? Look in here, right? Because the real answers lie in here.
Hmm.
So, but anyway,
Absolutely.
thank you so much, everyone. If you like this, make sure to support. We do have our website up as well right now. It's still kind of bare, but it's still theshieldproject.com. You can also follow Stefania in her channels. I believe is Indigo Warrior 441, I think now, right? It's like your third channel. And then, yeah, I mean, we'll post everything you need. And then if you have any questions, let us know in the comments. But I appreciate you guys' time. Until next time.
Thank
Bye.
you.